From CBS News in Washington, CBS News correspondent Charlie Rose. Front lines in the war to end all wars. They're the ones who went over there, the nation's World War I veterans. We'll talk with 4 who served next on Night Watch.
November 11th was not always celebrated as Veterans Day. For years, it was called by its proper name, Armistice Day. It was created to remember the armistice that ended World War I, the war to end all wars. It was also designed to honor those who served and those who did not return from the battlefields of Belgium and France and Germany. Almost 5 million Americans served in World War I. About 145,000 are still around to tell their stories and remind us of their contribution to history. 4 of those men are with us now. Colonel James Sellers, a highly decorated Marine. John Crawford, a troop observer and telegraph specialist. Clarence Ward, a doughboy or basic soldier. And Nathan Golden, an Army veteran. Welcome to all of you. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Let me just talk about age for a second. I'll start here. Mr. Sellers, how old are you?
92.
92. My goodness. You are how old?
99.
And on May 6th?
May the 6th, I'll be 100.
All right. Mr. Golden?
I'll live that long.
You'll live that long.
I'm 92, and I was born on July 4th, 1895.
1895.
Yeah.
Do you remember your 5th birthday when
Yes,
the century
I do.
turned?
I do, because on my 5th birthday, my family lived in Pittsburgh, and a census man came to our door, and I heard my mother telling everything about myself, and she said I was 5 years old at that time.
Wow. Mr. Crawford, you are how old?
I'm 90 years old.
90.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you remember about World War I?
Well, I remember leaving New York, and I arrived, and we stopped, we arrived in Paris, not Paris, but Brest, France.
In France?
And there we remained for about 4 or 5 days, in which case we were classified and went to various parts of France.
Yeah. Were you injured in the war?
No, I wasn't.
And how long were you in Europe?
About 17 months.
17 months?
Yes.
Yeah. How about you, Mr. Sellers? What do you remember about?
Well, I remember distinctly Shadow Terry, where I was wounded.
Yeah.
The Marines went into the line on first time on St. Patrick's Day, and we were in the quiet sector at that time.
Yeah.
And we were due to go up and relieve the 1st Division at Cantigny. Instead of that, the Germans broke through the French lines completely and got nearer to Paris than any other time. The French High Command had no confidence in our Americans, but they had no one else to put in. So we were thrown into the lines at Chateau Thierry, it's called, or Buresh, or Belleau Woods. And I was wounded there the first day. And so we stopped the Germans there. Yeah. And so we had more casualties on that first day, June the 6th, than at any other time in the history of the Marine Corps.
How close was that? Was there hand-to-hand combat?
Oh, yes, yes. As I say, I got wounded the first day.
Right.
But our unit stayed in there and fought for 25 days. Yeah. And I was in the hospital just outside of Paris at Neuilly, and we were there until I went down after Bastille Day to Vichy. And that was a very bone sector. That's a good sector. And they had all sorts of stuff for us there.
All sorts of entertainment?
Oh, yes. We had, I saw 2 or 3 grand operas there. The French were crazy about billiards, and they had a big billiard thing. And they wanted to know about Will Up, Willie Hoppy.
Yes.
You're too young to know he was a famous billiard player. And they had a band concert nearly every evening out in the hall. And they'd taken over these beautiful hotels for hospitals. Yeah. So that's where I convalesced.
All right, I'm going to get
back. When I came back, I found myself in command of the company.
Is that right?
And
now, what was your rank by then?
I was still a lieutenant.
But you were in command of the company?
Yes. And when I came back, I was promoted to captain.
Yeah.
And I have a picture of my company, and I was in command of the company the last 3 engagements that our division was in.
All right. I want to talk about when you got back to the
Okay.
United States in a minute, but let me go to Mr. Golden. You're amazing to me because you're 92 years old and you seem like you're 60. Do you feel like you're 60?
Yes, I do. There are times, however, I get certain aches and pains, and I just have to slough them off.
How did you lose your leg?
I lost my leg by being hit at Verdun.
The Battle of Verdun, one of the famous battles of
That's
World War I.
right. I also was a replacement at Chateau Thierry that the colonel talks about, and on the last couple of days of that battle, we were pulled out, and General Pershing came to review us.
So you saw the famous Blackjack
Yes,
Pershing?
I did.
On his horse?
No, no. He was on foot. He was on foot. Yeah.
What was he like? I mean,
Well, he
you
was
remember this day?
a dynamic sort of person and a very, very famous leader. I also was with the French ambassador on April 1st of this year when he laid a wreath on not the French ambassador, the minister of France.
Right.
Laid a wreath on General Pershing's grave at Arlington Cemetery.
So you were there for the ceremony?
I was there for the ceremony, yes.
What was it like when you came back? Were you heroes? Did the American people welcome you with open arms and parades?
Very, very much so. I was in the 26th Division. That was a New England division in the 101st Infantry. And when we came back, we paraded in Boston. It was because of the fact most of the men in my particular company came from South Boston.
Yeah.
And Colonel Logan was our colonel at that time. And it was a very interesting, on both sides of the street, there were stands built, and we were well cheered by the American people.
Did you lose a lot of your friends?
Well, yes.
How many buddies did you see die?
Yeah, well, I didn't see any die immediately, but later on was told about many of them that had passed away.
All right. We'll talk more. What a wonderful way to celebrate Armistice Day, Veterans Day, with 4 great men who served in World War I, all in their 90s, all full of spirit and great sense of duty. Night Watch continues in just a moment. We are back talking about World War I and subsequent wars and meeting 4 very interesting people in their 90s who are here with us to remember Veterans Day. You, Clarence Ward, have a song you can sing for me. Would you just give me a little bit of the song about the Kaiser so that all America can hear you sing before you reach 100?
Well, Germany had a Kaiser at that time.
Kaiser Wilhelm.
And so we started a little song. I forgot about all of it, just a little bit of it.
Okay.
And it says, we slip a bill to Kaiser Bill, make him shed a tear. And when we see the enemy, we shoot him in the rear. Oh, boy, oh, joy, where do we go from here?
All right, that's pretty good. What do you think, John? What do you think of subsequent wars? Where were you in World War II?
In World War II, I feel like a slacker. I had a reserve commission, and I received orders to report for active duty after Pearl Harbor. But my old battalion commander was commandant of the Marine Corps in Washington, and I was back here because I was president of the Military Schools Association at that time and getting ready for our annual meeting. And I went to see Tommy Holcomb, who was commandant of the Marine Corps, and told him, I said, I'd like to come back in, but I'd like to have about 2 weeks off until I can get this meeting over. And he said, if you come back in, I don't believe you'd be very happy, because you'd be at a desk, and you're doing more good there at Wentworth, training young fellas to go into service, than if you'd come back in. Said, so go home and forget it. The next year I went back, and an old friend of mine who was on the reserve desk said, I've got the very best job for you, Sandy. We're going to start a woman's part of the Marine Corps.
And you're going to be the charge of the women's part?
I ran out of there.
Tell me what you have, where were you in World War II?
In World War II, I was director of the Motion Picture and Photographic Division of the Department of Commerce, which I served in for 36 years.
And what did you do? Did you make films?
No, we were an economic organization that helped American manufacturers of film, studios in Hollywood sell their films abroad.
Yeah. During the war, that's what you did?
Yes. And then I also helped the Army, the Signal Corps of the Army, recruit cameramen and photographic individuals for service over in Europe. At that time, as a matter of fact, I was asked on a waiver of my leg to join the Signal Corps, to be adjutant at their studio in Astoria, Long Island. Yeah. I took the examination, and while waiting for my commission, there was a freeze put on the Signal Corps for additional personnel, so that was the end of that. But later on, just after the war, I was requested by the Army, by General Marshall and Secretary of War Pace, to head a mission to Europe to get a color film formula. This formula was developed by Agfa of Germany.
Now, what year was this?
This was in 1945, in November 1945, and on Christmas morning, my team of 5 color experts landed in Paris to fulfill this mission. And for that mission, I was given by General Marshall and Secretary of War Pace a meritorious certificate of merit from the Army.
Congratulations to you. Let me go to John Crawford.
Thank you.
John, what's the secret to a long life?
Well, I hardly know the secret to a long life, but I can tell you my experience.
You're still working on it, huh?
Well, first place about it, I had one job all my life.
One job?
One job.
Yeah.
I was a railway postal clerk.
Right.
And that is a job that you kind of have to look after yourself and be on the job, and it is a thing that requires you to be prepared to do the work. And from time to time, I just find myself sticking until I made 40 years of it.
Yeah, well, good for you. Mm-hmm. What's the secret to being 99, Clarence?
Sir?
What's the secret to living to be 99?
Well, being good, I guess.
Good?
Good and bad.
Good and bad. All right. Thank you all. It's a pleasure.
All right, sir.
Pleasure. Nice to have you, Sellers, Mr. Ward, Mr. Golden, Mr. Crawford. Real delighted to have you on the broadcast. Veterans Day, 1987. Night Watch continues. Back in a moment.